Yay!
Hey everyone! Welcome. I got my girl Ivy with me today. I'm so excited. And I also want, because Ivy is, and you'll learn, you'll see, is like the nicest person ever.
Well, Jen, I think that goes to you. But on top of that, you're just inner beauty matches your outer beauty, and your outer beauty matches your inner beauty, and you're just so dynamic. This is so fun to see you.
I know, right? So Ivy's in Texas at this moment, which she's always like a moving target because she travels so much. I'm like, what state, what country? So the fact that we actually get her here with us is amazing. I'm so excited. So by the way, this is also a female entrepreneur who's created this line, my girl Krista. So begoodtopeople.com. It is the best conversation starter in the world, especially when I'm going out to like get coffee and the barista's back there and they're like, that's so great. I'm like, why are you?
I know, we all need those t-shirts. It's so true. Be good to people. Life is short. Life is short. Yeah, I love it.
Way too simple. So I want to let everyone know, I always start off by letting people know how I know you. And we had run in similar circles for a while, and everybody kept saying, you two need to meet, you two need to meet, you two need to meet. And finally, you were in New York City, and you text me, and you go, I'm here, I don't have much time, do you want to run with me?
Oh my God. I'm so glad you remember that. I just remember getting together with you and over drinks. That was fantastic because then we just talked about everything under the sun. And I was like, finally, my girl, I just love the energy. And I was like, oh my gosh, somebody who's just amazing and dynamic and doing the same kind of stuff. So it's just so much fun.
Yeah. Well, that is what that was our second time we got together. The first time you're like, do you want to run? And I'm like, what? And I was all like dressed up for the day. It was like the middle of the afternoon. And I was like, oh my God, I love her. She's tenacious. So I do like walking, talking meetings all the time, but I did it this way. So I do run and I go, well, what if I can't run? And you're like, I've seen your legs. I know you can run.
That's so funny. I don't remember saying that, but it's totally true. You have like the best legs out there. And is it not true though? I mean, one thing, Jen, it's like, because both of us as business owners, it's like, we should as women like show up in your fullest beauty and just own that. And I love that you do that. So it's like, yes, I know you're running, you're working out, and that's how it should be. You're in super mom.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I feel like I'm super crazy most of the time. But yeah, I did. That's what I fell in love with you, that you were like, hey, do you want to go run? And I was like, well, I can't really run because I have meetings, but I'll walk. And that's really how it began. And by the way, I do so many of my meetings now, walking and talking with people. And when people have never done it before, they get done, they're like, that was awesome. I feel so awake right now.
It is, it's like, but that's one of the things too. I'll never forget. I'll never forget the first time I was invited for like a meeting on a walk. And it was like, I was this really young tech CEO. I was early in my 20s, and it was this amazing executive woman at Dell. And she was like, the only time that I can meet with you, and it was like a mentoring meeting, was walking around the lake. And I just remember like, we're walking side by side, and I'm looking over to her and we're trying to have this conversation. I was like, this is so weird.
But it's so fun.
It was so fun. And the conversation we had, it was like, because all of a sudden as you get into it, it sort of broke down the barriers, and we just had a conversation. And now that I'm older, and I know this is true with you too, there's so much stuff to juggle. And it's like, you know what? Part of how we make all this stuff work is you just sort of, you put it in where you can fit it. And there's no better time than when you're working out or walking or running or whatever. It's just fun. Makes it fun.
Well, it is. You have to layer it in and make it work. And I did that last night. I hadn't talked to one of my girlfriends in so long. She was away. I was away. And that's what we did. We met up and went for a walk. And I didn't work out yet. So it was awesome. So we've got a bunch of people saying hi. Joel Collins on here. Sean, Kim, Marissa, Chrissy, Daly, Pacelli. So it's funny, I said Daly, which I only really ever knew her as Pacelli, but now I always see her Facebook, Chrissy Daly Pacelli.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Anyway, you talked about tech entrepreneur. So I want to let everybody know a little bit about your background because I always joke I was an entrepreneur before it was cool. Now it's cool and everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, but you were an entrepreneur before it was cool as well. So tell everybody how you got started and then what took your turn to the Made in America show at CNBC.
Yeah.
So kind of give us a little bit of the Ivy journey.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's so funny because I feel like I've always been like this nerdy girl, you know, like I loved all this stuff that just seemed so nerdy. And that included like tech and, you know, when it wasn't cool for girls to be in tech and all of that. But, you know, it was interesting because, so my background is just as a technology and finance entrepreneur. And so I've worked on a number of companies. Some of them have done well. Some of them failed miserably. I often say I was broke and homeless at one point. I think that's important to say too, because I think having had some of the successes that I know you've had and that I've had the opportunity to have, it's also really important for women to share those stories of overcoming challenges so that we can learn from that because it wasn't a rosy journey and it never is. I mean, there are really tough times. But part of that actually is what in fact inspired me to do the work that I do today. So I started out as a technology entrepreneur, came out of business school now many years ago. I went to business school in Austin, Texas, and the internet was just booming and I just wanted to be part of that. So I built a company.
Austin was cool too.
Right. I know, right?
Austin is so cool.
People are like, what are you doing down there in Austin, Texas? What is going on? But it was so fun to be here during the time that like Michael was building his company. He was already a number of years into it, but you know, early 2000s. So built, worked on the first company then and just continued to go and work on different companies. And all along the way, I mean, I always say that like building a company, whether you're a man or woman, it's hard for anybody. But for women, there's a very distinct set of challenges. And so, for example, in my first company, I was told I don't look like, act like, sound like, or talk like any of the CEOs that the investors are used to funding. I'll never get funded. We did overcome, a number of these hurdles. But part of what allowed me to overcome it was the conversations I was having with my mentor. And I always say, the number one thing any entrepreneur can do to sort of elevate themselves going forward is get a great mentor. Yep. And it was those conversations that inspired the CNBC show. So I'm not a TV person. And I remember saying to my mentor, I was like, I am learning so much from you. Imagine if we could like do what you and I are doing now, shine a spotlight on these conversations and get it out to people all over the world. Mm-hmm. And he agreed. He said, let's do it. So we created a pilot for a show and CNBC ended up picking it up. So I took a detour into business television for a while doing that, which was great. And then sort of got back into business building and fast forward to the work that I do today. And
before you get to the work you did today, I want to point a couple little things out, little nuggets of wisdom as I extract along the way. First, she said, Michael wasn't even building his company then, or just beginning his company then. And she's talking about Michael Dell. And it's like, Walt Disney didn't even have his thing yet. I mean, Walt didn't even have his
I'm just laughing because I know you and I had a quick call and it's like every moment of the day at the moment is like booked back to back in these calls. And so when I'm having conversations now, I'm like, if I don't actually sit and what I should have done before we got here, just sit and censor and then go forward. Yeah. Because otherwise I'm like, yeah, Michael, this person, that person.
No, I love it. That's what I love about you. You're like, and Michael, and I'm like, I think she's talking about Michael Dell right now. But it's just your life. It's just who you are. And you also pointed out that having a mentor is critical. And I literally had just posted an article that I had contributed to. I just posted it right before we talked. And the number one tip is to have a mentor because I would not be where I am today if I didn't have my mentors. And one of my mentors, I tell this story to people not to be audacious, but to say how valuable mentoring can be with the right mentor. There's some mentors that never actually accomplish what they say that, well, what they're trying to teach you. So I always say the first thing that you want to do is make sure the person that you're hiring as a mentor has accomplished what you want to accomplish. That's a key thing, the litmus test of what you're investing in. But I invested in one of my mentors $5,000 an hour to learn.
Wow.
Hour. This was young in my career. And it was literally like, here's my life savings.
Yeah.
But it was to learn how to speak, be media trained. It was a guy, Steve Harrison, who I've done an interview with before. And it was how to learn to speak in sound bites and be media trained. And it truly changed the entire course of my career path because I was able to pitch in every type of environment to investors, to buyers, just at networking events. All those media skill sets transferred to every other aspect of my life. And I tell them to this day, it was the best money I could have ever spent early in my career because it took me from here to like there so quickly, having that skill set. So
isn't that amazing? I'm so glad you said that though, because just to like really add to what you're saying there, I think, and I see it a lot with women entrepreneurs that unlike the guys, I mean, and I always say for women to elevate to our fullest potential, we're only going to do it in collaboration with the guys. And part of what I've learned in working with, you know, some of these very high level guys is just they sort of block and tackle their way through challenges and opportunities. They put their money down if they think it's going to elevate them to the next level. And they, you know, that joke that people say like, you know, if you're at a dinner and with a bunch of guys and the check shows up, usually a guy will pick it up, one guy, and he'll pay for it. But if you do it with a group of women, women will be like, well, Jen, you didn't have this drink but you ate this. And so you owe 25 more cents. Like that's what women do. Right. And there are benefits to that, but there are also challenges. And all I would say is, you know, again, around what you're saying, is how important it is for women to sort of take that deep breath and really think about how can you use the resources you have, the money you have to make those kinds of investments, just like you did with your mentor, who are really going to elevate you so much farther, further forward. You know, we've got this one woman, for example, who actually has been doing a bunch of work with us, and it's a major investment for her. And I said, why are you doing this? Like, why are you really doing this? And she said, Ivy, because if I was doing this on my own, she said, it's going to take me years to get what it is that you can offer me in a few phone calls. Yep. And I was like, there you have it. There you have it. You know?
Absolutely. And it's not even just the knowledge, it's the relationships and the introductions too. So before we really outline what it is that you're working on now, part of what you're doing is really helping not just with the knowledge, but the connections. And it's the same thing for me along the way in my mentors. What they've done for me is not just accelerate with the knowledge, but accelerate, hey, you need to know this person and you need to know that person. And I do the same thing for all my clients too, because that human capital is such an enormous asset. And so we could peter along and work really hard, or we could invest and then accelerate. And to me, that just makes more sense. Like, I don't want to peter along forever. I'd rather retire at a normal, or at least, I don't know if I'll ever retire, quite honestly.
I don't think you will. I think you're going to be one of those people that, like, all of a sudden it's just one day, it's just going to be done. And people are like, oh, she was working on her next deal, you know? And that's what I hope happens with me. You know, we just keep going and giving until it's done. And then when it's done, it's done.
I agree. That's exactly. So all the juice is gone. But
exactly.
Still, my thing is, I still want that option. Okay, that's the goal moment where it's just an option. And I'm sitting on a beach, and then I invent my next big idea.
I love it. I love it. Well, that'll happen, I'm sure.
When you were done with Made in America, it is Made in America, right? Am I making
it? It was actually American Made.
American Made.
And oh my gosh, that was such a fun show. That was so amazing to get to spend a day in the life with people like Howard Schultz from Starbucks or Willie Davidson from Harley Davidson, and like really have them share their stories of overcoming adversity and how did they do it? What were the things they learned to get to where they are today? I learned so much. I use a knowledge that I gained from the show every day in building business. And then I share it with all the women that I know, and men too, but mostly women. Absolutely. Yeah, it was amazing.
Absolutely, because they were mentors. You were experienced, even though they weren't direct mentors to you, they were mentors. By the way, Cindy asked to read my shirt. It says, be good to people, Cindy, which I know you love.
So like, yay.
So good to people. So you were getting mentorship in your show, which was awesome. And you're meeting human capital assets. So, and by the way, there's a thing called Made in America that Philadelphia does each year. And I was just reading the article of the guy that created it. And so that's why I had a Made in America stuck in my head, American Made.
Martha Stewart does not, I think she does either Made in America or American Made. I mean, it's now, you see it, often. So yeah, I mean, it's been years, but I loved it. Yeah.
I loved it. That was my Donnie Deutsch days. And I loved it. I'd watch it all the time, and I was on Donnie all the time at that time period. And I loved it because CNBC was doing so many shows around entrepreneurship, and it would just really, I felt like, fueled this Shark Tank culture that we have right now, which is amazing.
Yeah, there was a guy there, actually a good friend. Shout out to Dan Hoffman. I'll have to send this over to him because Dan was creative director over at CNBC, and he was the guy behind creating so many of these shows like Mad Money and Fast Money and American Made and just all of those. So yeah, that was a really fun time. That was
a fun time. I loved it. My guy Guy Adami is still with Fast Money all these years later. It's amazing.
That is amazing.
So you had the TV show, which created incredible insight and knowledge for you. But then you went to Dell and became the entrepreneur in residence. But you did something very different. A lot of people that maybe know that term EIR know it as more of a private equity person who's going into a startup and kind of giving leadership to the startup. So you kind of change it in a way that I believe is really the way of the future. And I've said this to you since you did it. And correct me if I'm wrong in the way I'm going to explain it, but what Ivy did is basically, her role at Dell is said, hey, Dell, you guys are doing amazing things, and I'm going to share the message in entrepreneur language to the entrepreneur community, and then I'm going to hear what they need, and I'm going to come back and tell you in your language so I can bridge the gap of conversation to accelerate innovation. Is that correct?
I'm laughing because I'm like, that $5,000 you spent with that guy who told you how to get a soundbite. I'm like, yes, basically in a nutshell, yes. Yes, but all the credit, I mean, it really goes to Dell, because what brought me to Dell was the vision of the work that I do today, which I know we'll get to, but it was a big, hairy, audacious goal. It's still, it is. And I could not have done this work without having a global technology partner. Mm-hmm. And for Michael Dell and a guy named Steve Felice, who I am so proud to say, he was the president of Dell, and he and I got to work firsthand. He's actually the first outside investor in our company today, just this extraordinary visionary guy who so believes in the power of entrepreneurship, but the power of women entrepreneurs. And so for them to have given me the opportunity that they did and to be able to do the things that we did together at Dell, I mean, it was just, we totally redefined what being an entrepreneur in residence is all about. And that's because they allowed that to happen. They created the space for that to happen. I had to execute. I had to deliver on the results, but it was them who really made that happen. And to this day, I'm just like, Dell does so much for entrepreneurs, globally, that things that we haven't even heard of. And it's like, you just dig a little bit deeper and it's like, oh my gosh, they really do everything they can to leverage their resources to help better women entrepreneurs in general. So it was a ton of fun, learned a ton while I was there. It was great.
And you also worked really hard because you were, I'd say you're a moving target now, but you were really a moving target back then. And you wound up getting involved in the UN during that time period on the Entrepreneurs Council. So can you give everyone a little bit of insight as to that fun experience?
Yeah, so the United Nations Foundation, just this incredible organization that's really tackling all kinds of global issues around the world. I mean, they just have amazing programs around supporting women, women's health. I mean, you name it, and the UN tends to be involved in some way. The Sustainable Development Goals, for example, that's really what their focus is. And so they wanted to bring more innovation to the United Nations Foundation, and they created something called the Global Entrepreneurs Council. And it's 10 of the world's top entrepreneurs that receive an invitation to sit on this council. And together, we really look at strategizing and creating tactical solutions to address them. Mm-hmm. So, yes, when I got the invitation to be part of this council, it was one of those like, what? Is this really where I want And then all of a sudden everything began to make sense, because I have a feeling that it's sort of like what they do. I mean, this is definitely overstating it, but you know, people who go to the FBI, you don't even know you're being watched, and they're doing all their due diligence. And that's essentially what the UN Foundation was doing. I was meeting all these people, and they flew down to see me. They're doing like all this background checking and all this stuff. And what they were doing was they really roll up their sleeves and do a lot of work to make sure that the makeup of who's sitting on that council is going to work together, is really going to be able to create the results they want. So it was a total honor to sit on that, and continues to be an honor to be involved with them today, because they just do amazing work around the globe and certainly have opened so many doors for sure.
Well, I got to be a benefactor of you doing it.
Yeah, you should tell about what happened. That was so amazing. You guys got the vetting too.
I did get the vetting, and I got to be part of the Global Accelerator because of your position on the Entrepreneurs Council. So that kind of leads to my next thing, that you and I both share a very common philosophy in we all lift each other up and we can all rise together. And you do it so genuinely and authentically. And since the day I've met you, have witnessed you do it to not just me, but strangers and the people that you love and everyone in between. So once your time at Dell was over, your next mission really became about helping lift other people up, but not just a few people. You set, as you would always do, this audacious goal of 1 billion women, empowering 1 billion women by 2020 to achieve an economic level, status, freedom, entrepreneurship, living more of an empowered life. So explain to us where this moment came. Was it meditation? Because you meditate like me, like crazy, right?
Yeah, it was. No, thank you so much. And it was back in the beginning of 2011. I was on a dirt road in Dallas, Texas, and I was praying. I grew up thinking I'd be a missionary. And as I got older and realized I enjoyed capitalism and I was pretty good at it, there were moments I was horrible at it and lost money and really struggled. But the moments where it worked, it was like, wow, what an opportunity to be able to create abundance, create jobs, create opportunities for myself, my family, my community, and then ultimately the world. And I was just so inspired by that. And in 2011, being on this dirt road, I started praying and just asking, God, what is it that you are asking me to do? I had literally the day before in meditation had decided that I was ready to fully hand over my life in service to whatever I was called to do, which was both exciting and really, really scary at the same time. Because I knew that when I was ready to go in and ask the question, it could have been, IV, my nickname, we need you to serve in the jungles of Uganda. I could have heard that and I would have had to go.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, I heard, this calling to empower 1 billion women by 2020. And after getting over the complete freak out of that and sort of the enormity of what that potentially meant, and then softening into, okay, well, how does one person create a global movement, a global vision? How do we realize this into being? And it was that sort of awareness that brought me to Dell, because I knew I needed a global technology partner. Had I not done the work at Dell, I couldn't do what I do today. But what we fundamentally care about and why I eat, sleep, drink, everything, this work, is really it comes down to, we believe if we're going to create a global sustainable future, that it's happening through a new set of eyes, and that's the eyes of women. And that when you activate women...
No offense, guys on here.
Yeah, and guys, we couldn't do it without you. I mean, it's funny because half of our team are the guys, that build Empowering 1 Billion Women. I'm getting goosebumps as we're saying it, because we walk together. But the idea of even being able to walk together for women is, for women to show up in their fullest potential. And 90% of why women don't start, grow, or scale an idea, a venture, anything, is actually due to lack of confidence. And it's like, how do we get over that lack of confidence? We get over that when we take action. We take action when we have mentors. And so the idea with Empowering 1 Billion Women always was, how do we build a global platform that connects women to the education, the technology, to the resources they need to succeed? And where that's evolved to where Empowering 1 Billion Women is today is we fundamentally focus on connecting women entrepreneurs to the funding resources that help them move forward. We do that through education, community, and technology. And then we take a percentage of everything we earn and we reinvest it back into the EBW Foundation. That foundation, actually, it's like we got our approvals in December. And so you'll start seeing that roll out this year. But it's really to develop opportunities, mobile apps for women and girls in developing countries to teach them about entrepreneurship and financial literacy. So it's, Jen, it's just amazing. I wake up every day. I just got off a call with a number of the chapter leaders of EBW right before you and I got on the call. And there was a point years ago where I was like, okay, my job is to lead this into being and just carry this vision forward. And that still is true. Mm-hmm. But what has come out of that is this amazing group of women all over the world that have, it's almost like this faith-based or spirit-based, service-based calling that together we can all rise and together we can be financially abundant. And if we, instead of keeping the knowledge that we have and not sharing it, how do we take that knowledge and share it with as many women as possible and turn around and reach the next woman up and the next woman up and the next woman up? And so many times they've done it for me. So it's just this amazing, amazing sort of movement. And I'll be doing it for the rest of my life. And I know this is what you do. You do it every day. I mean, you do it for entrepreneurs. You have this special spot for women in the way that you take the knowledge that you have invested so much time, energy, and money to learn and give that back to other women. Just thank you for doing it, because that is how we are able to together rise together to create that global sustainable future. So that is what I do every day, morning to night, while I sleep, like you, wake up in the middle of the night dreaming about how can we do it even better.
Ideas. Well, I can't contain it. I can't contain it for myself because I can't help other people. I don't feel fulfillment when I'm just being successful for myself. I feel fulfillment when other people are being successful. I feel more excitement when my clients come back and say something amazing happened to them, which I know is the same for you. And it's an abundant mindset versus a scarcity mindset. And one of the biggest things that I live, and I know you live, and I have observed in the last few years is the women that are truly leading this mission, not talking about it, actually doing it, really truly doing it, are women that are very spiritual in their beliefs about abundance and versus scarcity, and want to collectively raise consciousness, not just for women, but for men and women, but not only raise the consciousness, but support that consciousness. And it is eat, sleep, and breathe it. And it's always not just, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this for everybody else? And that's truly how we move forward as a collective consciousness. And, it's very different than the old paradigms of when I'm successful and I have power over others versus I want to become successful to lift up others with me.
I love that you have just said that. I love that you've just said that because I think it happens too often that people feel like they have to wait and then, again, power over others as opposed to service with others wherever you are at. And how can you lift one another together and rise together? And oh my gosh. I mean, that is truly how we will create the global change. That's how we're doing it. That's how it happens. There's more than enough out there for everyone.
There is more than enough out there for everybody. And that's that big shift. And it's also the shift of, I did this TV show for Fox News called Strategy Room. I think you came on it. Did you come on that show with us many years ago?
Gosh, I've been on Fox a few times. I don't know if I've been on that show.
I have a feeling when I met you and you made me run, but then we decided to walk. I have a feeling I brought you on. But my co-host, Eric Bowling, who's still killing it right now, I would always bring on very successful, smart, beautiful female entrepreneurs. And he'd be like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, what do you mean, why am I doing it? He'd be like, aren't you scared? And I'm like, scared of what? He's like, that they're going to take your job. And I'm like, no, they make me look good.
I love that, Jen. I cannot tell you how much I love that. And I'm so appreciative to hear that because again, so often, I see where women feel like I've achieved something but there's not enough room for all of us. Right. And I think like you, it's like, we've been blessed with these opportunities to have platforms and exposure and access and all of that. And like you, it's like, that's like Oprah actually said this when I was doing her Super Soul Sunday thing a year ago. And she said, it's like when I was a kid and I'd have a chocolate bar. And she said, I can eat that chocolate bar by myself or I can share it with a friend. She's like, it's always so much better to share it with a friend. And it was just one of those very simple statements. But just like what you said, I mean, it's so much more enjoyable when it's like, let's all go together. And there is more than enough room. Yeah. And just, gosh, I think
we get there faster together.
Yeah.
Just last week, I had a question for you. I had a question that the only one I know in the world that could answer the question was you. And I was like, hey, can you help me? I just have this question. And you were like, sure. And it hit me. You just said, sure, the same way I would say sure to somebody. And you gave me not just a little bit of the advice, you poured every ounce of advice that you could possibly give to me. And the interesting thing was when we hung up, I was like, she actually could have kept that insight for herself because it's very specific knowledge that she has that other people don't have. And she shared it with me so freely, so giving. And that's how it should be. And that's how we should live. And that is how everyone can rise together. And there is enough. And so what people don't recognize in this domino, it's a constant domino. And new dominoes are being set up on every tier. That you gave that piece of advice to me. And that's going to help me get to the next level doing what I'm trying to do. And then you're going to need something where you're going to be able to say, hey, Jen, I need advice. And we're just going to keep, as we keep rising, just like rock climbing, we're going to keep helping each other get up versus I'm going to get here and then you're going to stay down there. And then I'm going to feel alone, really, is what you're going to be. You're going to be alone when you're up there by yourself. So I just love it because it really is pure and authentic. And I really did think about that after we hung up last week. I was like, wow. She really had that for herself.
Thank you so much. And and I'll continue to do that in anything you need and you do the same thing. And that is again, if there's one message that I'd love to leave anyone with that's watching this is just, when you come from that place of real service and giving and you really how can you make a difference in the life of another person? You truly, you're elevating their potential, you're elevating your potential. And as you just said, Jen, it's this give and take, but we're continually giving and taking in a way that allows us to rise. Mm-hmm. And, I have a good friend and I think you know him, and God bless him, Sergio de Cordova. Do you know Sergio?
Sergio. I love Sergio. By the way, for everyone, Sergio is part of the UN as well, but his whole life is about what mission and movement can I do next? Yeah.
And Sergio, it is so amazing to me. And I love it because Sergio and I, just like our conversation last week, it's like when Sergio calls me and says, I need help on something, or I think you should do this, or what do you think about this? And we just get down to how do we really help each other get something done? And we've done that now for so many years that it's if we're trying to move something big, whether it's small, big or small, but whatever it is, there are some things that he and I have talked about that they're really big sort of global issues. And we talk about how are we really going to move the needle on that? But because we know that we're coming from this place of service and this place of giving, and we're going to give each other what it is that we have for the betterment of all, that we're going to be able to move this forward. And it is that sort of mentality attracts some pretty amazing people that I know for you, because I know you've got amazing people in your life, and I feel so blessed for the amazing people I have in my life. And what EBW has also given to me through this platform is just these incredible women, all over the world who are fundamentally changing opportunities for others in their communities. And it's like, it's just, gosh, the faster we can move and the faster we can grow and the faster we can support one another, it really is to the betterment of all. So yeah, if there's one thing, it's like, just give. Like when you give with no expectation. It is amazing what comes back from that. Yeah. And how much, again, forward faster you move from that place of service.
Well, not only how much you can achieve or accomplish in it, but it's also how happy you can be doing it, right? So I think both of us believe in this new construct of success, right? Success isn't just your achievements or dollars in your bank account or assets that you accumulate, but it's about how fulfilled you are, how nourished your soul is, how complete you feel in the beginning and at the end of every day. And that is success, how good you feel about everything that you're doing. And the fact that you're making an impact, that when I know that when I leave this world, and I know when you leave this world, we want people to be like, okay, that life had an impact on my life. And it helped me do whatever it was. But that going into that service-driven, mission-driven life is redefining success. And I know with EBW, this is a core principle that you're trying to teach women, that success isn't just derived by the accomplishments and the achievements, but I want to make it very clear, the more you can achieve, the more you can help other people, right? So I don't diminish that part, but when you can do it while fulfilling your being because you're giving so much to other people, then that is real success. That's like the ultimate, where you wake up every day and you said earlier, like, pinch me, like, this is it, this is my life, this is amazing. But it's because it is coming from a place of giving first and foremost and not taking. So, by the way, I want to tell you that Jana Stewart just gave us a shout out.
Oh, Jana, love you. Oh my gosh, love you, Jana. She's amazing. Talk about an incredible entrepreneur. She's been this fitness coach, and it's so much more than a fitness coach, just this wellness coach, and she just does amazing work. I think she's now still, she and I lived in LA at the same time, and I think she's in Chicago at the moment. But yeah, look her up. She's amazing. Inspires me every day to like stay on top of it. I got to keep working out.
Yeah.
You know, Jen, back to your point though, one thing that I want to share on that, just I've experienced it firsthand, because empowering 1 billion women by 2020, when we say what is our mission statement outside of reaching those 1 billion women by 2020, but we say our goal is to become the #1 financial empowerment community for women entrepreneurs worldwide. And I will share that, again, when the energy of putting the finances got in front of the energy of the movement of service, right, and then out of that service place with the finances coming second, we felt it in the business, and we felt the misalignment. We felt it, and I'm not saying there's not a place for that. There certainly is, but that's not what EBW is about. EBW is about come from this place of service first and love, and how can we give back, and then how do we then build confidence around getting our arms around those finances, and how can we help empower one another? And when we got back to that, all of a sudden, again, as my EA Pam says, you know, we follow the path we're supposed to go, and doors will begin to open quickly, and they do. Absolutely. When you follow that path of service and what you're called to do, doors open very, very quickly.
Absolutely.
Thank God. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you put it that way. The reason I pointed it out is because what I feel that women, women are still only creating less than 3% of the wealth in the United States of America, but yet they're graduating more from universities and starting way more businesses. So there's always this conversation, as you know, because you're living it, around money and finances and its association to worth. So, and the negative belief systems that might have been impressioned into the subconscious mind around finances. And I love that EBW takes the shift and says, let's do service first and figure out the model to support that behind it, which I could imagine seeing such success from that because it's not feeling like this inauthentic masculine energy push, but coming from the feminine power and moving forward that way. And that's, by the way, an enormous shift that's happening in and of itself right now.
It really is. And I won't say that I didn't, again, have my own moments of falling into that, because I think for any entrepreneur, I mean, it really is this balance of, being in service and also, humbling yourself in service, but then where the ego comes in and has an opportunity to play a role, but can get dangerous, is this, you have your moments of like this ego of, I'm going to bust through all the walls that everybody else says can't be done. And so it is this delicate balance of walking that through. But again, I do think that sort of just energy of the like focus on finances first. It's like for women, that doesn't work. Women work to earn money so that they can give back. We reinvest 90%, as you know, of what we earn back into our families, communities, and ultimately the world. We've already talked about that a little bit. That is what drives women. It's how can I be in service first? And then how can I generate the resources to be able to make those contributions? It's very different than my experience of working with the guys, who oftentimes it's really like this game. It's a fun game, but it's, how can I beat the other guy? How can I make this and this and this? They compartmentalize in a different way than we do as women. So it is very much a different energy.
Absolutely.
But it's exciting that it's emerging all over the world,
Well, and I love what you said earlier. All of my business partners in every one of my companies is a guy or guys, everyone. And I like how you said earlier that we're doing it together. And I always say to my business partners, you guys are really good at things that I'm not, nor will I ever be. And I'm good at things that you're not, and nor will I ever want to be. And so we complement each other. So I feel like that the next feminine movement is really about recognizing what we're really strong and powerful in our own feminine energy, and recognizing what guys are really good at, strong at in their own masculine energy, and then creating a greater whole together.
And being okay with that. And I think one of the things, and I'd be curious your experience of this, but one of the things that I've seen with women, again, and this is all okay. Like, as I was saying to somebody the other day, that, just historically, the guys have been the ones that were always leading and expected to be the CEOs and the politicians and the whatever. So women oftentimes are really learning how to be leaders for the first time. But part of that is also, again, when you come from this place of service and you're grounded in your purpose, if you will, that as you're having these conversations where you're starting to get constructive criticism or disagreements or whatever, rather than internalizing that and making it something personal, instead, really being able to look at it from an objective place of, I'm here to serve, and how can we leverage this feedback together, to your point, to collaborate with not taking it personally, but how can I take the feedback and make what we're talking about even better? And that's something that I see women struggle with a lot. And I get it. I used to, especially when I was a young entrepreneur. And there are moments that I'm like, ugh, I get this feedback and I'm just like, it's tough. But I think the more women can learn that and show up, again, owning that power and groundedness, you almost find joy in like, well, let's in fact not agree on everything, and let's have a conversation, because in that conversation, we're going to make it better.
So in emotional intelligence courses that I teach, I talk about the power of conflict and how often we have been conditioned to avoid conflict or feedback that might not be the ideal feedback. But when we actually go to it from a place of wanting to be the best version of ourselves and hear it without defensiveness, but hear it to understand and see something different, could be true, could not be true, but it's still something you can explore. We get so much more out of each relationship and each communication opportunity. So conflict actually becomes an awesome opportunity of, what can I learn right now? What can I see? And then once you make it through that conversation, intimacy actually grows in every one of those relationships. So we shift from this conflict's a bad thing to conflict's a really awesome thing. It only really is negative when you don't prioritize working through it constructively and you become defensive. Then it's negative. Yeah. But it actually creates a percolation.
Go ahead, sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
It does. I will often talk about sort of this deal maker mentality, and what I've learned I know just like you, and so as the deal sizes, if you will, that I've worked on have gotten bigger and bigger. So let's take, my time at Dell. We were working on some pretty sizable deals at times. I was running a $100 million fund. It became a $250 million fund. I mean, these are big things. And what I realized in the leadership that I was interacting with is deal makers want to work with deal makers, and big thinkers want to work with big thinkers. And one of the greatest gifts, and I keep giving him a shout out, because for the rest of my life, whenever I'm asked, what has been a game changer for you in terms of this service to women? And I'm going to say it's Steve Felice. Steve Felice, who is that president at Dell, Steve, who is the first investor in EW 2020, because, not only his belief in what's possible with women, but Steve and I mean, we've gone through some pretty challenging situations together where there were, differences of opinion. We had disagreements, but Steve and I knew that we could always show up to the table together for the greater good of what we were trying to accomplish together. Yeah. And in that, we'd be able to really dissect, if you will, that challenge. And how do we approach this in a way that creates a win-win for all? Mm-hmm. And it's because of that, I know, now he gave me an opportunity to sit at that table with him at Dell. And now look at the work we get to do today. And he continues to show up and open up more opportunities because he knows that we can come to the table together and address even challenging issues. And we're going to work on solutions together that are going to create better results. And that is something too for women too. I want women to know that if you want to continue to grow and thrive and play a bigger game or make bigger impact, you're going to attract people who are doing bigger and bigger things. And you earn your seat at that table and the ability to grow with them as you show up, again, fully open to have a meaningful conversation to create win-win solutions. Mm-hmm. And you're just going to continue to grow and thrive. Does that make sense in terms of how I'm explaining it?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, it's checking your ego at the door.
Yeah.
What you just explained, by the way, could save every marriage. Because it really comes into all relationships. A business partnership and a marriage or an intimate relationship are not that different. And if two people can come to this conversation to learn, number one, come to the conversation knowing the highest intention is to have the better good for each other. And then knowing that can enter the conversation feeling safe and not attacking, but saying, this is what I see. Okay, this is what I see. Okay, how do we make it better? Then everything could be better, right? So that's not even just a business. That's like a huge life lesson in all relationships. When you're coming to the table for the better good, the greater good of all, then there's nothing that you can't get through when you check your ego at the door. By the way, my girlfriend, Gabby Bernstein, has...
Oh, she's great.
She's got great books. The latest one is The Universe Has Your Back, but all of her books talk very, very, very clearly about the ego. And the way she defines the ego, I feel like it gets people to really see the ego in its own little place. So when we start ego tripping, we can feel it as this voice starting to come on in. And so, what you were explaining is when you're getting that seat at that table, but then your head gets big and you start ego tripping and you're feeling like you're proving something. Versus
you're going to get disinvited from the table. And there's a good chance, depending on what table you're sitting at, you won't get back invited again. And it's, but I say that with we all make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes.
Yep.
But truly, people who I have continued to have this amazing pleasure to do these incredible things with. These are people who, again, they show up to the table, like you said, check their ego at the door, and it's keep the bigger vision, the bigger objective in mind, and let's work towards win-win solutions for everyone. Mm-hmm. And Jen, I have to say, because you mentioned it works in marriages too, and I'm so appreciative, because even last night, my husband, God bless that man, he's a police officer. The kind of work that we're doing here at Empowering a Billion Women, it's sort of the business it's building, he will say, I'm just a simple guy. The way I want to serve is as a police officer, and he and I have everything, pretty much literally everything we own into Empowering a Billion Women by 2020, because that's what you do as founders. You put what you have into the thing that you are building and growing. And there are some times that, that can be pretty scary. And even just last night, he and I were having a conversation, and, you know, we were dealing with this, what felt like for a moment, this scary moment. And the first thing my husband said, like, God bless him, he said, babe, I'm just saying, probably TMI, but babe, he said, the number one thing here is that you and I stick together. You know, our marriage sticks together. We stick together as a team. We trust each other. We love each other. And it's like, forget everything else. But I love that he shows up in that way. And then it invites me to show up in that way. And and then you can start saying, okay, so that's what we care about. So now how do we tackle these things? And just, he's just cool, dude.
I love watching your pictures, and you guys, I unfortunately have not yet met him, but I can tell the relationship you have is authentic in what I see and hear as well. One of the things I teach frequently is the health of your relationships is in direct proportion to your success and happiness. So what you're saying is so true, because you feel safe and you have a foundation so you can thrive, and you can serve more because everything at home is safe and secure and the foundation is solid. And so if that wasn't, that's where you would put your energy first to fix it. So it would be that way, but you pour into that on a daily basis because you know how important it is. And so it supports when things get rocky at work, or we have like, I had one of those days yesterday where everything just went right. And then I had one of those days today where I was like, seriously?
But this is right. This is good. This is sort of like the end of the day, you know, cherry on top. we're all synced up again.
It was one of those like little things, like even like in my Wawa this morning getting my coffee, I put all the creamer in it, and I went to get the coffee and I knocked all over the entire thing of creamer, and this poor man already had just cleaned it up. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But I want to give a shout out to everyone that's been like tuning in and making mentions. My girl Anna's on here. Eileen's on here. Angela, I saw making some comments too, saying she just, she wrote a blog called, I think it was a blog, called Put the Heart Before the Course, which echoes exactly what you were saying.
Oh, wow. Isn't that amazing?
Yep. Yeah. And my girl Luna, who has a bright, bright future. She's a student at, well, I think she's graduating at Temple, a grad student at Temple, who helped me at Jumpstart Startup in the fall, volunteered just to soak it all up. And she just shined. Like when someone volunteers and they shine, where you would think it was their full-time job and they were being paid millions, you're like, wow, this is unbelievable. Like this person is volunteering and they're shining. Like they're going to do amazing things in this world. So Luna's checked in with us too, and Martin, Kim. So we've had a lot of awesome feedback, and Luna commented when we were talking earlier about, you know, everyone supporting each other, and she said, stand on giants. So that's totally
so true. So true. I just love that. I just love that.
So your time, I know, is very valuable, and I know you've been traveling this week, so I want to respect that. But I know that we have some powerhouse people tuned in here that are movement type people who want to make change as well, who want to constantly say, we're here, we're good, but how do we get to great? Speaking of movement, you said something earlier when you and Sergio were talking, and he's working on a movement. One of the things that I learned throughout my career, but it really embodied it when I was in the UN doing that global accelerator that first day, and I met everyone. The people that were really making things happen all thought of everything they were doing in terms of a movement, not a job, not a brand, a movement. And Adam Braun, Promise of a Pencil, is so eloquent in his book talking about this. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, because if we could make a shift for people that right now are kind of working in this business with a desire of social impact and they can't figure out why they can't push it to the next level, think of it in a term of a movement, and then you just get more troops behind you that way, instead of a brand or this business that you have to move forward, but this movement.
Yeah.
Promise of a Pencil, I highly recommend to think just amazing and how it got me to shift my mindset. So,
well, one quick addition onto that, and it's something that my best friend of many, many years, Lynn Graft, he runs Storytelling for Entrepreneurs, and he was producing my CNBC show, put us together. It's just this amazing, amazing person. And one of the things that he really teaches in line with this building out movements is if you really want to create this impact and you really want this buy-in, people don't buy into things because of a price. They buy into it because of the emotion. They want to be part of something. So how are you, as he talks about, like, how are you really conveying the story of the impact that you want to have in the way if you think about it like a movement? How do you make that happen? And when people start engaging with you at an emotional level from that place, once you've created that connection, it's like you can make the impossible possible because they're emotionally connected to what it is that you want to do. So yeah, I love your invitation for people to think about how do we create movements? How do you give yourself that opportunity? I always say gift yourself that opportunity to think about what it is that you're doing to like almost allow yourself to be childlike and artist-like. And say, how am I really now creating something of meaning and of impact that connects with people from an emotional standpoint, and how does that translate into a movement? So it's you do that and it's just sky's the limit.
Changes everything. By the way, right when you mentioned Len, he wrote,
he what?
He wrote to women devoted for helping other women without expectations. So it's so funny, direct. And it was Lynn that pushed, like, you two, when you're in New York, you have to get together. And Lynn was also part of the Global Accelerator, which was so much fun too. So if anyone wants to get involved with EBW, Empowering Billion Women by 2020, what can they do? How can they get involved? How can they support?
Yeah, thank you so much. If you go to ebw2020.com, there are so many ways that you engaged. We just actually today announced we're doing a retreat in Italy in July. I'm super excited about it. It was funny because I was on the phone with somebody and they said, when is it? And I said, I'm not sure. I didn't organize it. But then I went online to look at it. I was like, I can't wait to go though. Come. So come there. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll be launching out the foundation, which I'm so excited about. And that really is a way that you can come in and sort of like, I'm number 1 of Empowering a Billion Women, or I'm number 47, and like help us understand what it is, what are you doing to really help elevate the power and potential of women around the world. And so I'm so excited to see that go live too. But ebw2020.com. And, Jen, thank you so much for organizing this. I just love you. I just appreciate and respect everything about you. And I'm just so honored to call you not only a colleague, but just a great friend. And just thank you for all you do to serve entrepreneurs, but especially women.
Thank you. Likewise. I adore you, love your energy, everything that you're doing. Yes, it is a love fest because that's how you should be. The people that you work with, you should just love and enjoy. And so I'm so grateful for you, for your time. Everyone here is grateful for your time. As Ivy and I say, be good to people.
Sorry, what?
Be good to people.
Be good to people. Be good. Be good to people. Life is short. Be good to people. Yes.
Absolutely.
Plenty of opportunity for all of us.
Absolutely. I have this saying, and I'll leave everyone with this, and it might sound morbid, but it's a real wake-up call, because you said life is short. If what was happening was that you're upset about was happening on the last day of your life, would you really care? And usually the answer is no. So let it go. It's that simple.
I love it. I'm going to keep that in mind. Thank you for that little nugget. I love it. I love you, Jen.
Love you too.
All right. Be good to people. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.